Gone are the days of watching Doctor Who in an immersed state of suspended disbelief. That is, if you were brave enough not to be hiding behind the sofa the whole time. Because current Doctor Who has been infiltrated by a very loud elephant in the room that's simply too big to ignore. To the point you really can't describe the show with full integrity without using words such as a vehicle for the message or woke. That's because the BBC have boxes to tick and Russell T Davies has, quote, a long list of messages to tell us, as well as an unwavering sense of pride about their importance. Now, in modern society, you may frequently observe that loud, self-righteous, loud and preachy behavior, as well as being offended by everything, is frequently praised as virtue. But I would like to scrutinize Davis's vast smorgasbord of messages he's crammed into the recent specials of Doctor Who. Is he a champion of the oppressed? A harbinger of words of importance, as he and the BBC would have us believe? Or is that perhaps not the case? Well, why don't we begin an investigation into the matter? First, let's look at the context for this message. Episode 1, The Star Beast, and there's a rocket violently hurtling across the sky. Everyone's out on the street, the rocket seemingly crashes, London's up in flames, and there's UFO speculation on the news. This would surely be one of the biggest news stories of all time. The people would be glued to the telly or social media, or examining the crash site to see what on earth is going on. Nope, that's not the case for these 3 young teenage lads from Rose's school. They have other matters to attend to.
Well, Jason, you alright? Alright, looking good, Jason. Well, give us a kiss, Jay boy.
And judging from the direction they're heading, they've been cycling away from the nearby crash site. So where on earth are they going? But it's not just them. Donna also seems practically indifferent about the spaceship as well. She doesn't check the news the moment she walks in the door and barely talks about the matter. Instead opting to talk to her mum about what it's like to have a trans kid. And so it begins. There's no way these events should have transpired. Agenda at the cost of continuity.
I really enjoyed your novel.
Oh, thank you very much.
Way of writing a fucking awful story.
So now that a crashing spaceship has hooked our attention, the opportunity is taken to get to work on the message. And Davis is very much concerned with how he can get us to listen to his lectures. He said he was proud of his series Years and Years and its message, but it didn't attract an audience. So now his major concern is trying to figure out how he can attract audiences and get them to listen to his moral counsel, stating, "We tried that, we'll try something else, we keep going, we're trying new things." What new thing is he trying in Doctor Who? Well, he's recognized that people like fantasy, so he's taking a sly step towards fantasy in the hopes of getting views. Hence the return of the Celestial Toymaker and goblins in the Christmas episode. Anyway, back to this episode, and we get this peculiar dialogue where Grandad Wilf is brought up.
I used to know your granddad, Wilf.
He's not with us anymore.
Right. Of course.
So yeah, Donna just chooses this obscure wording and proceeds to remain silent, implying the worst.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
He's not dead, you idiot. He's in sheltered accommodation.
But was the Doctor really the stupid one to draw such a conclusion? Anyway, this is just one of the many put-downs of the Doctor this episode, and the next one is about to follow thanks to the fiasco around the Meep, a homicidal Furby with Tourette's, currently feigning cuteness and innocence like this series and much of Hollywood feigns virtue. Unconscious projection, I suppose. Anyway, they couldn't decide if they wanted this thing to be a rip-off of Pokemon or Dobby, so they said, well, we'll just copy both, even though it makes no sense. Sometimes the Meep repeats its name like a Pokemon, and other times opts to talk in coherent sentences. Anyway, alien species on Earth, you can imagine millions of questions you'd want to ask, things you'd want to find out, and time is of the essence, so the Doctor begins an inquiry to find out what's going on, but is interrupted by Rose because he makes the unforgivable sin of assuming the Meep's pronouns.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
Okay, so despite the fact that we're in a precarious situation and danger is in fact imminent, we are faffing around trying to figure out this thing's pronouns. Damn, just how deep is the conditioning that in such a situation you're thinking about pronouns? Now, is it wrong for the Doctor to assume the Meep's pronouns? Or is it wrong for Rose to assume an alien species has the same pleasantries, customs, and social political concerns as humans? Rose or anyone else could have offended the Meep or even made sexual advances towards the Meep in any number of ways based on Meep culture, customs, and instincts, but would be none the wiser until informed otherwise. Also, you don't lecture the Doctor on how to conduct himself with an alien species. He's dealt with them infinitely more times than Rose. You don't lecture the Doctor on morality. He's the most selfless man in the room and has proved so time and again. Now, I'd like to take a moment here to remember what we're trying to achieve by going out of our way to include all this social political stuff in the show. In this case, with Rose, we want the world to be nicer to trans people. At least, so is claimed. Now, let's think about how we go about doing that with respect to Doctor Who. Well, let's say if we want the world to be nicer to trans folks, we can give the trans character in the show likable, relatable qualities. Well, the Doctor is the star of the show. He's the character you've loved for years, at least most of them. He's the most selfless and virtuous, and he's certainly the wisest and most intelligent. And David Tennant is one of the most beloved Doctors. The side characters aren't as important, and for them to be likable should show the Doctor his due respect. Anyone who thinks, speaks, or acts like they're smarter than the Doctor will be unlikable. When the wisest man in the room is speaking, they should shut up and listen. Any other behavior is the sign of an ignorant person. If you're coming in here lecturing the most beloved Doctor, especially about divisive issues, you're failing on the likability front. I raise this point because this certainly won't be the first instance of this behavior from Rose. Anyway, getting back to the story, the Doctor learns that the Meep is evil, and so reactivates Donna's Time Lord memory so she can help save the day, even though it should mean certain death for her. With the re-emergence of the Doctor Donna, they both get to work saving humanity by pressing some buttons. Though they are successful, they soon find themselves in trouble again. Thankfully though, Rose inherited the Doctor's mind from the Meta-Crisis and has conveniently found access to some very useful buttons. So Rose presses the very useful buttons and everyone is saved with runtime yet to spare. So Davis can get back to what's really important, and that is of course the message. This begins when everyone comes to some kind of revelation about their gender identity.
We're binary.
She's not. Because the Doctor's
Male.
and female.
And neither. And more.
Spare me your fucking psycho fanny, right?
And continues with Rose and Donna laying it on thick.
That thing is wrapped around your cortex.
Yes, we know.
We know everything. Thanks.
You know how earlier we were talking about to make a character likable, they should show some respect to the Doctor? No, Rose doesn't like that idea, talking ironically to him and assuming a stance of moral superiority. How full of yourself as a teenager do you have to be to think that you know better than the Doctor?
And you know nothing. It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. She'd have understood.
In the past, Donna was blunt, but she never had any notion that women understand things better than men. I wonder why she thinks this way now.
We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
This line really proves what happens when you walk on eggshells trying to say the most politically correct thing. You end up spewing total and utter nonsense. This line suggests that if the Doctor woke up this morning and put on a dress and makeup, maybe made an effort to speak in softer, more feminine tones, he would have figured things out, because that would make him female presenting. But of course, if he then subsequently goes back to dressing as he normally does, then he will lose his understanding. All his life experience throughout time and space counts for naught because of his masculine exterior. This line also implies that the female to male trans folks would also never understand, as they do not fit Rose's criteria of female presenting. So they're lumped in with the men for this one. As are the women who don't present themselves in a feminine way, perhaps opting to wear a blazer, perhaps having a short haircut and not wearing makeup. This line is a reflection of the prevalent base morality that is popular in identity politics. That you should judge people not on the content of their character, but on surface level things, the external. Yes, this is the message that Davis insists that we absolutely must hear. Of course, any notion of equality is out the window, because Rose and Donna are declaring that they are wiser than the Doctor because they are women, and Rose lays claim to feminine wisdom despite being a teenager who likely transitioned recently. Again, if you want to make Rose likable, so that the trans community can win favor with the masses, Rose should not say the most contentious, stupidest line that's ever been uttered in the history of Doctor Who.
Just let it go.
choose to let it go.
Anyway, so because Donna and Rose make an effort to present themselves in a feminine way, they have acquired this great understanding that they can let go of their Time Lord power and suggest that the Doctor should follow suit. Just let it go. Hey, you know, that Time Lord power the Doctor has sure comes in handy when he's trying to, save the human race and the universe all the time. The Doctor's wisdom was built from several lifetimes of experiences, from the genocide of his race to saving countless lives and putting his life in the utmost danger throughout. Rose and Donna didn't build that knowledge, they didn't live that experience, they acquired it secondhand, especially Rose. Yet now they think that borrowing his wisdom elevates them to a position of superiority. Anyway, so concludes Rose and Donna's epic spiel on gender identity and how great women are. In this episode, you'll note that Rose really is just some kind of obnoxious political billboard, only having the capacity to speak about gender identity, throwing out whole dictionaries worth of social political buzzwords. That's because you can't make the trans character a regular sort of person. No. They have to conform to some hyper-political caricature, say the most politically egregious nonsense, and be relegated to the lowly status of a pawn in a culture war, devoid of all nuanced human complexity. Trans or not, I say there is more to a person than their political beliefs, but T. Davis and the BBC clearly think otherwise. The more jarring these characters are, the more they provoke audiences, because you can't suspend disbelief. You're dragged out of Doctor Who and plunged into the world of identity politics. No one is watching the show because they want to see T. Davis and the BBC put on a fabricated display of virtue. No one signed up for this when they became a fan of Doctor Who. People find this irritating, and understandably so.